Hey guys, this is Steve. I'm checking in with you with the how-tos again. Today what I want to talk about is sound production on the bass. This is kind of a big thing because what happens is our left hand, there's some right and wrong ways to do things out there. There's some proper methods, there's some good methods, some bad methods, some in-between methods out there. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to make this kind of quick because I really just want to run down how to produce a better tone on your instrument. Now, whether that means that you're playing with flat wounds, round wounds, whether you're using a mute or no mute, whether you're playing with a pick or your fingers or your thumb or whatever, there's some right and wrong left-hand techniques. And everybody will say, follow that of the classical guitar players. And that's pretty dead on because those guys have some proper ways to hold their instruments and also to kind of set it up in the right way. So what I can do is I can tell you what I do with my students and some of the things that I found that works really well. Generally, there's always some points like left hand playing position, not flying the flag, and we'll get into that. That actually comes from a Gary Willis book. But proper hand technique, warming up your hand is really important too. Right off the bat, what I'd like to start with is getting the bass in the proper position. I see a lot of students who don't use a strap or they're practicing without the strap. And what happens is the strap doesn't just hold the bass up, it helps to hold the bass in place. If we let go and we don't have the strap on, we're kind of supporting it, it falls over, things happen, it's not so good for anybody, right? So you want to make sure that you do strap your bass on. The strap is important, it keeps it in place, so if you let go, it kind of does the right thing. Secondly, what I like, now this isn't right for everybody, but I've been using a footstool for years. This came over when I used to play in college with a classical guitar player. I used to see him do it all the time, and I just started doing it myself, and it just made sense. So I've been using one for years. I like it when I practice. I like it when I sit, and what it does is it keeps the bass in place. So when I stand, it's in the same position as when I sit. That's also about strap height, too, making sure that you have your strap in the right place. I've been using this Groove Gear strap for a few years, and I have them on all my basses now. The neoprene strap is incredible. I love this strap. It's the right girth here, so it's like 3.5, 4 inches across, or maybe even more. It's just perfect for supporting the bass. Beyond that, what you also want to do is you want to make sure that you're not playing with the bass flat against your chest. I see a lot of guys who play like this, and especially new students, guys who are starting out, you don't want the bass flat. I always tell my students, what you want is the bass to kind of point, you want your arm, if you were a clock, your arm should be pointing at noon, the bass should be pointing at 1, slightly after 1. That's going to do a couple things. It's going to allow you to kind of get some space in behind the heel of the neck, so that as you travel up the bass, you have space. If it's back like this, you're going to hit right here on your body, and then you're going to have to transition. If I keep my bass here, I transition smoothly across. So proper position. I also like to come back to the footstool, is that I like that the footstool kind of keeps my leg up. So it creates this pocket. And you'll also notice when I said that I keep the bass at 1 o'clock, I also keep it slightly tilted when I play sitting down. So I'm sitting, the fingerboard isn't exactly straight. It's not like this. It's actually slightly tilted up. And even when I'm playing standing, I keep the bass kind of cocked to my right hip so that the bass is over here. Kind of like the opposite when you're playing upright. When you're playing upright, it kind of leans into the other hip. But here, when we do it this way with the electric, keeping it here is going to actually keep it in a proper position so that we get the best attack, that we get the best movement. Now, moving on to that left hand. There are some really bad hand techniques out there. And I hear a lot of guys saying, well, if you have really, really poor reach, just play 1, 2, 3, 4 across 3 frets. Now, that is fine if you're an upright player because the spacing is so large that you have to do that. Now, granted, there are some tiny hands out there that need to do this, but it is going to become a hassle in the future, and if you ever want to play double bass, you better get used to opening up your hand a little bit wider, which means that you're going to have to start doing some stretches. You're going to have to get that hand open. I like to do 1 finger per fret. That is one of the things that's nice about playing a guitar versus a double bass, that we have the ability to move our fingers around. And I like to come in and have 1 finger per fret. As I move across, I like to really stretch that out. And the other thing that's going to help that is, if you can see, is that I'm also putting my thumb on the back of the neck. When I have it on the back of the neck like this, you'll notice that, let me see if you can see that. Now my thumb, I kind of take it to the back of the neck and I don't cross over. On the P bass, or most Fender basses, you'll see a line down the neck where they put in the truss rod. That's, some people refer that to the skunk stripe, other people refer to, I don't know, whatever else. But it's actually a good guide, because think of it as an equator. You don't want to cross the equator with your thumb. And there are some guys who will bring that technique over and bring the thumb into play. If you can pull it off, it's a bad habit. It's like picking your nose. It's a bad habit. You don't want to get used to doing it. It's better to just avoid that if you can. It's better to kind of start out with getting that thumb into a proper position. Because if you look at it, what happens is, let me get that camera back on me, here we go. When I have this here, if I keep my thumb here, I can actually reach across and I pivot back. I bring my thumb out and I pivot across. So when I want to reach over, I can move the mechanism over. So I have a hinge there that I'm moving across. That's actually going to give us the best usage of that hand. The other thing we want to think about here too is that we want our fingers behind the fret, not in the middle of the two notes. Now if you're playing a fretless, you would be playing on the fret line if it was a lined fretless. If it's not lined, you'd be playing on the note, and there's normally a dot somewhere around those notes, so you got to work on getting your intonation in, right? So one of the things that I found that really works is if you play a lined fretless, it's going to really help you to kind of pick up this habit anyway. But you want to put your finger right on the fret, if not right behind the fret. That's going to get rid of a lot of that fret buzz that a lot of us get. And that sometimes also comes from, you know, when your finger's in the middle and you do like a slight release, you get that buzz. You want to fully release. Now, hand control is really important. Now, when you're a beginner, it's going to be hard, and we're going to find ourselves in some situations where we're going to fly the flag as we move across. And we're going to bring that finger off. You want to get into the mindset that you want to kind of keep your fingers down as you play across. This is called economy of motion. When you're playing through a chord progression, you're playing through something, you want to be able to get to those chords pretty easily so that you find yourself in a situation where you're not like reaching or sliding. You're not shifting all over the place. It's like, oh, I'm playing a major, then I'm playing a major here. You know, why can't you play a major in both places using the same fingers in the same position? And that's part of economy of motion. It's really knowing your fingerboard, knowing your notes, knowing how your hand lies. I always recommend to a lot of students is this book too. This is a great book to start with to really build up finger dexterity and to build up strength. Dexterity is almost more important than strength. I know Yannick has been pointing out that you want to raise your strings. And the truth is, yes, you do. You don't want to play with your strings flat on the fingerboard. You lose dynamics when you do that, because when you dig in, you end up getting buzzes and all kinds of crazy stuff. So you do want to build up strength, but dexterity is more important. If you're working on speed, if you're working on accuracy, accuracy is more important than speed. With accuracy comes speed. Don't try to play fast runs. Play your runs at normal speed. Get them accurate. As you do that more, it's going to get faster. It doesn't need to be fast. Fast does not equal good. Fast sometimes just equals crap that you can't tell is good because it's happening so fast. Slow it down. Take your time. I always say this to all my students, especially the ones who come in and they fly through their exercises. Do you like the bass? Do you like it? And the answer is yes, I like playing the bass. Then why are you speeding through a practice? You should be taking your time and really getting comfortable with the instrument, knowing the notes, knowing the neck, knowing what those sound like. This is like that other video I did, that Say It and Play It, about memorizing the neck and really understanding where you are. So I made a list of things that are really important. I said, you know, the left hand, we don't want to fly the flag. That's number one. Watch spacing per finger per fret. The idea of doing this is, some guys do this and it's not for me. Maybe it's for you, and I'm not going to crap on it. But I would rather see somebody who's actually able to use all their fingers. And they don't do this, where they duck the pinky behind the fingerboard. That's not good either. So we want to kind of get those fingers out there so that we can use them. The more that they're available, the better it is. We talked about economy of motion, less shifting, able to hit the notes that we need at those parts. We want to talk about proper placement of the left hand. That's what we talked about with keeping that thumb behind the neck, using it as a mechanism coming across. playing right behind those frets. So when you're moving across the neck, you get all good notes. We don't end up with buzzes. That's really important. You know, watch those frets. Watch where they are. Learn your neck. Take your time with this stuff. Remember, the biggest thing is proper placement, because we want to keep the bass in the same position, because what you practice at home is going to become part of what you play out. So as long as we kind of think about this and approach it the right way, working on those things that we're going to use in the performance, breaking it down, keeping a practice journal. That's another thing that I haven't said in a while, but have a practice journal. Know what you worked on today. Especially my guys out there that are working a day gig or working a lot of jobs and you don't have any time to practice. You got to keep a practice journal so that you know where you left off, so that you're not always starting from the beginning. Because if you're doing that, that can be kind of difficult. So knowing exactly where you are, you know, day to day, day in, day out, you're going to see advancement. Work on sight reading. Start simple. I always like to grab the Simondl. These are great studies. I know they're for upright, doesn't matter. It's great for electric bass players too. Whether you're working on a 4-string, a 6-string, a 7-string, a 9-string, a 2-string, upright, doesn't matter. This is actually a really good book for you to have. The Simondl studies are awesome. You know, if you want to go a little bit deeper, let's jump into jazzology. Here's another great book. This will help you to really understand harmonics, understand harmonic progressions, understand how things work. You really want to start to break it down. I know that most of us just want to learn licks, we want to learn songs, and learning songs is honestly excellent because it is going to help us to understand what we're playing, because we want to understand every part of a song. But for now, let's go back to tone production. Let's stick with tone production. So starting with that finger on that neck, watching where those frets are, making sure the bass is in the proper place, making sure that our arm is in the proper place, making sure the bass is tuned. That's always a big thing. Don't just play, make sure you tune it. And then go from there, you know, really take your time. Go slow. Use a metronome. Don't use a metronome, but actually I'd recommend using a metronome. Use a drum machine. Drum machines are way more fun and way more available now with all the different iOS devices and Android devices. Get yourself a drum machine. There's a million good ones out there that at least is going to keep your practice fun. And it's going to keep you true to time. It's going to lock in some ideas. You're going to start to work through some ideas. Take your time with it. All right, guys, this is Steve, the bass guy. I'm checking in with you. Make sure you're practicing. Keep that practice journal. Watch your left hand. Most of you guys are right-handed. I think it's most of us. So watch that left hand, because you're going to be watching that, or watch that right hand too, because the left hand's going to be doing stuff and the right hand's going to get squirrely on us. So make sure you keep an eye on that. All right, guys, keep practicing. I'm going to check in on you.